afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. Earlier this year, Congress approved and President Obama signed the 2014 Farm Bill. Overall, the new bill authorizes more than $956 billion in federal spending on a broad range of farm and nutrition policies over the next 5 years. Today, we're going to find out more about the Farm Bill, specifically as it relates to dairy farmers. And dairy farmers ought to pay attention. There is a deadline of next week, December 5th, for dairy farmers to make decisions about their participation under the new law. Joining me are two experts on dairy policy and economics. Bob Parsons is the agriculture economist for UVM Extension, and Julie Jock is the farm program specialist with the Vermont Farm Service Agency. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Judy.
Well, the 2014 Farm Bill represents a big change for dairy farmers, and they have some decisions to make. So, Bob, let's start out with the changes. What's different for dairy farmers?
The big change is that the Dairy Price Support Program now is a pay-to-play program. And so farmers have to make two decisions. They have to decide if they want to be in this program, and two, they have to, it's like an insurance program, and they have to decide what level of insurance that they want to be in, and they have to pay part of the fee for it. Before, we had a program like the Milk Income Loss Contract, which the farmers didn't have to pay to participate in.
And so the key thing for dairy farmers is the Margin Price Protection Program. What is that?
That is a protection program where there is kind of an insurance policy, and reimbursements are paid back to dairy farmers when the return over feed costs is below a certain point, and you have insurable ranges between $4 and $8 per hundredweight. So if that doesn't matter what the milk price is or the feed price is, if the combination of those leaves with a farmer with feed return over feed costs less than $8 and they have insurance at a certain level, they may get an indemnity payment.
And so that's sort of a shift in thinking for farmers, isn't it?
It's a very big shift, because now farmers in the last couple of years have been shifting their thinking that, you know, we've had different ranges of prices for feed and milk, and now they're taking a look at it. I guess the big thing is, how much do I have left over after I pay my feed costs to pay the rest of my bills? That's what is going to keep me in business.
So milk prices might be great, but if feed prices are high, then it's not so great.
We had a year in 2012 when milk prices were relatively good, but we had very high corn and soybean prices, and that's what we're killing farmers. And return over feed costs that year got to be less than $3 per hundredweight.
Wow. And the price for milk was?
The price of milk at that time was $21 per hundredweight.
Wow, and all that was eaten up with feed.
And it was eaten up with feed, corn and soybean meal.
So, Julie, who's eligible to participate in this program?
Any dairy farm that commercially markets milk is eligible to participate.
And so how does someone register to participate in this Margin Price Protection Program?
You would want to visit your local Farm Service Agency county office, and Bob Parsons and other extension members have been helping folks make decisions about the levels of protection they might be interested in. And you would consult with them and come see us to fill out a CCC 781 for your production history and make your elections on a CCC 782. And
so why is production history important?
The production history is the highest level of production from your 2011, 2012, or 13 years of milk marketings. And that is going to be the amount, the highest of those 3 years, the amount that will be allowed to be covered and protected under the new program.
And so to be in the program, farmers need to sign up by December 5th?
Yes, they do.
And so, Bob, are there costs to participate in the program?
Yes, that's what makes it a little bit different this year, because as a little bit like insurance on your car, if you only want $250 deductible, where the insurance company picks up most of the price if you have a wreck, that costs you a lot more than $1,000 deductible. You want more coverage in this program. If you want to cover the basic level, or you just want to cover whenever the feed price drops down to $4 return over feed costs, that's a $100 administrative fee. But if you want insurance for maybe $5 coverage, or $6 coverage, or up to $8, which is the peak, it's going to cost you more as you move up with the greater protection.
So what are some of the issues that a farmer would think about to make those decisions?
The primary things they have to think about is how this milk base, he has to get their milk base, and then they have to think about, you know, how much can I absorb if the milk price if this margin drops and I get down to a certain point, how much can I absorb? And two, how much do I want to spend for some of the insurance production, because it is an increase in production cost. And so some of the levels are only like 7 cents per hundredweight, but it does start going up to 14 cents per hundredweight and up to 20 or even 40 cents per hundredweight, which is really quite substantial. The second part of it is there's a major division at 4 million pounds of production. If you have more than 4 million pounds of milk production, it is going to cost you more, because the rates are subsidized for the smaller producers who produce under 4 million pounds.
So there's a lot of things to consider.
The two big things is, do I want to participate in this program? And if I do, I have to sign up by December 5th. My next decision is, how much coverage do I want, and how much am I willing to spend on that?
How much does what other decisions go into that? Like, does it look like it's going to be a good year for crops? Is that one of the things that they have to look at?
They're looking at the crops. They're also looking at what the predictions are for milk prices are for next year. And of course, predictions are just like here at the TV channel, you guys put out weather predictions. And,
Don't go there.
Okay, we will not go there. But the same thing with milk prices. The best ag economists can't tell you what the milk price may be in 6 months from now. They will predict it, but generally they're wrong. And a lot of things can happen at that time.
So why doesn't a farmer just say, okay, I just need to play it safe and I'm going to get the maximum protection that I can get?
It's going to cost a lot of money. And it might cost them $10,000, $15,000 for that type of production, even if you're only at 3 million pounds, which is about 150 cow herd here in Vermont. And $15,000, that's a lot of extra cash cost. And if you think, I'm going to do that, and I look back on it at the end of the year and goes, I didn't collect on the insurance and I spent $15,000, is that a good expense?
Yeah.
They have to be able to sleep with this at night and talk with their lender and talk with some of their other members of the family, make sure that they think they're handling the amount of risk.
So, Julie, once a dairy farmer registers for the program, can they opt out, or do they have to be in the program for all 5 years?
By committing to the program, you're committed for the life of the Farm Bill, which is through 2018. So there are not options to opt out unless the producer retires or passes away.
If a farmer now participates in the livestock gross margin program for dairy, can they also participate in the margin protection program?
No, that's another kind of tough decision that producers are working on right now. We cannot have a duplicate participation in those programs, and as Bob and I were talking earlier this morning, livestock gross margin is also a subsidized government insurance, and therefore we cannot allow a duplicate under MPP.
Are they pretty much the same thing, or do they cover different things?
Excuse me, they are a little bit different, where LGM allows you to insure a smaller amount of time and you can kind of move around a little bit easier. There are in coverage periods where our program is for the calendar year and again for the commitment of the time frame of the Farm Bill. The other challenge we've heard from producers with LGM is you have to sign up the last Friday of the month and contact an agent within 12 hours or so, and that could be a challenge.
And so will producers need to have conservation programs in order to participate in the margin protection program?
A producer that signs up for margin protection needs to be in compliance with conservation, which is a little different than conservation programs. The conservation compliance is certifying that they have a conservation plan on highly erodible land, and that they would also have any wetlands assessed so that we're not having any wetland violations under the program.
And that's not a new provision. That was in effect with the previous dairy program also.
Why is
Correct.
that?
Well, it's trying to make sure that farmers are following the conservation practices. And as we know here in Vermont with the phosphorus in the Lake Champlain, this is becoming a very, very major issue that our dairy farmers are going to be facing at the state level in the coming year, and that's a whole other bag of wax.
So, Julie, what if the dairy operation is operated by more than one producer?
They would still be eligible, and we have provisions, as we did under the MILC program, or milk, where a producer, if they had multiple milking facilities, could request a separate and distinct determination, meaning they could have a separate MPP contracts on separate facilities. But that could be a request to FSA, and we would look at that.
Well, Bob, early this fall, Extension and the Vermont Farm Service Agency held informational meetings with farmers around the state. What were some of the things that you heard about from farmers? What were
a
some
lot of
their
the
concerns?
farmers were, getting in on the details. What are my real options if I'm over 4 million pounds? What if I'm already in the livestock gross margin? There's also other questions. Well, what if my son or daughter comes into business with me 2 years from now? And those rules are still being written yet. The Secretary is looking at those, trying to make them as fair as possible. And there's, then just some general questions of, well, when will I get paid? If I have a bad period, how many months is the period for? And just really getting into details. And so we held information meetings at 5 locations across the state, and over the last 2 weeks we've been meeting with farmers individually in the county FSA offices so that people could come in and sit down with us and we could show them what their premiums would cost, and they could also sit down and talk with people from FSA if they've got some particular circumstances that they're uncertain about.
It's hard to say that there's a typical Vermont farm. Would you say that's true?
Well, it's hard to say a typical one. Average size today is between like 140 to 150 cows, and it's still primarily family run with several other maybe additional employees. And so there's been several of these workshops we've had, and working with farmers on 101, where we've had 3 or 4 members of the family coming in and really having some real serious discussions among themselves about how much risk they're willing to carry, or whether they could afford this much insurance, or whether they should have more. And so this is, our dairy farms in Vermont are family businesses. And this is another decision that is not just one person involved with it, it's a family decision because it is a family business.
And you're making decisions 5 years out.
Well, you're making each year is going to be, each decision will be made. The decision that is made by December 5th is for the 2015 program year. Later in 2015, by September 30th, you make your decision for 2016, and the same thing for each year. So you're only making the year decision 1 year at a time for how much insurance level you want to carry.
So you can change your insurance level.
So you can change your insurance level, but once you're in the program, you're in for the life of the Farm Bill.
But it can be as little coverage as you want.
That is exactly right. You may think that this year, for example, that you may not think the milk price is going to, or that margin is going to drop very low. So therefore, I'm just going to sign up for the $100 sign-up fee, and I'll carry the $4 return over feed cost insurance. Next year, though, I may look at the forecast and say, there's a real good chance that this thing's going to spend a good part of the year under $8. I think I want to raise my coverage to $6, and so I'll make that decision next September and then pay another fee for that year. And then the next year may be a whole different set of circumstances.
And so you mentioned the farms are family businesses. What if you are in the program and you go through the first year and then something changes? Either someone else is involved, or another family member is involved, or not involved. Does that change anything? Well,
basically, if you go from a sole proprietorship to an LLC or a partnership, and you're keeping the same number of cows, you're still working with the same year bases that you're allowed from 2011 to 2013. If, for example, you decide, well, my daughter's coming home from school and she wants to get into business and we need to add a bunch of cows, the rules on that are still being written yet. And there is a comment period with the Secretary of Agriculture on some of the provisions of this program yet that is open until December 15th. And I, for one, will be adding a comment on that this is a very important consideration for some of our smaller Northeast farms that have no choice but to add cows whenever a child is entering into the operation. So this is maybe something that we might need a special committee to look at to see whether the milk base on that farm should be increased. That doesn't mean it'll be approved. It's in for the comment period, and the final rules are not, there's not even any rules written up in that yet. So that is something that will be an ongoing change.
Does that make farmers a little skittish?
Yes, it does. Because some people, he goes, listen, everyone's bigger than what they were 5 years ago. And so they're almost milking more milk. And then he goes, you have some children right now that want to come into business with you. That is a major decision. and you want to make sure that you have that milk insured, because that may change the circumstances of the farm's production, their debt level, their amount of risk that that they're taking on, so therefore they may need a little bit more risk protection.
If someone wants more information on the margin protection program for dairy, what should they do?
Two big things is contact your local Farm Service Agency office, or they can reach me at my phone number listed on the screen here if they need some guidance through some of the programs with the online programs that are listed.
Excellent. Well, thank you both for joining me today.
Thank you.
That's our program for today. I'm Judy Simpson. We'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.